Hello and welcome to Human AF Podcast. I'm your co-host, Steph,
And I'm your other co-host, Steph Taylor.
and I'm watching you kind of do a little dance as we introduce ourselves. So I'm kind of wondering, maybe we need to start thinking about a theme song.
Oh, remember we chose one.
Oh, we did choose one. So okay, so when we edit, we'll have to add that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys, scratch that. That was a very human moment of me forgetting what we discussed. So if you're listening, you can just laugh knowing that I completely forgot about that. Um, anyway, how are you today?
I'm really excited to talk about this topic, even though I forgot about, I thought we were on to next week's episode already, but
Mhm.
going back, I am like so excited to dive deeper into this topic that we touched on in last week's episode,
Mhm.
about rewriting the stories.
I'm hyped. This is one of my favorite topics. I've been talking about this nonstop for the last couple of weeks, and I feel like maybe I've been talking about this so much, like in preparation for this conversation. Like, whenever I have a lot of conversations about the same thing, it's always prepping me for this, like the ultimate conversation or breakthrough. And I feel like that's what's about to happen here.
Yeah, it's like it keeps one thing that I've really noticed and struggled with so much before it was in my awareness to actually acknowledge what happens is that loop where you keep coming back to the same things. You feel like you're in the same goo again and again, even though you're trying to learn, you're trying to figure out like, what is it that I'm being triggered by, or why do these situations keep happening to me? Even if it's as simple as like, no matter where I live, the water keeps being screwed up. Like there's always leaks somewhere or whatever. There's when it keeps coming back and being brought into your awareness, it's like a new level of integration.
Hmm.
And when you continue to have these conversations, whether it's with yourself or some like with other people, you're able to sort of look back at a point and go, oh, I couldn't actually handle the fullness of what I understand now back then. So
Hmm.
it's like your body, your soul, your humanness can only handle so much of that integration before it comes back around. That's like when you hear like someone told you 10 years ago this lesson, but and you like didn't really understand the cliche saying of like
Mm.
hurt people.
Yeah.
And and then it took a lot more of life's experiences before you go, oh,
Hmm.
hurt people.
Right.
And
Now
then
I
you're
get
able,
it.
yeah, like you're able to explain it, you're able to give examples, you're able to pass that knowledge on. It's, and that's where so much fun gets to, where you're like super hyped and excited, like, oh,
Right.
this is going to be a new level of integration for me to be able to share and talk about this.
Right. Isn't
Yeah,
it
this,
funny? It's so funny becoming the person that's like spitting cliches rather than the person like rolling
right?
my eyes at the person telling me them.
Yeah.
Like, I am the cliche queen now, and I love that for me because for the longest time I was like, this is stupid. Shut up with your
Yeah,
cliches.
right? This is stupid. But then you get to that point where you're like, how have it has it taken me this long to know? How have
Yeah,
people known this for so long before me? Like, come
right. Why did nobody tell me?
yeah, absolutely. But it is that total, the whole cliche of life is about the journey. The
Yeah,
joy is in the journey. Because otherwise, if we knew all of this stuff, there wouldn't be as high moments. Like your life would just be one giant high moment, but you wouldn't feel that high because you don't know what the lows are.
right.
It
You
would
need the
be
yeah, you need the high, you need the lows to have the highs. Like I always say, like there's like I've been reading a lot about like harmony, yin and yang type of stuff. And like you can't experience the light unless you've experienced the darkness.
Mhm.
And it's painful and it's hard, and some people unfortunately I guess never make it quite out of that darkness, and that's heartbreaking. But I think that just knowing that if you just get through this dark moment and you just like allow it to just be, on the other side of it is like an equal amount of lightness and good and positive. So,
But it can be so hard in some
mhm.
situations. Like other situations are super easy, but in
Right.
some situations, it can be so hard to be the love and light. Like
Oh
release
my
those
God.
negative emotions and just feel them and let them pass through your body when you're like, yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna die and fall apart and
Yeah.
break. Like,
Right? You feel like your absolute like your stomach, your gut is just
hmm
churning and you're having to live in this situation and you can't figure out how to get out of it even though you're like I just want to get out of this, but I
yeah.
can't stop these people doing these things to me. Like you're just in this goo, this absolute goo.
hmm
Trust me, I have been there in the last year.
Oh yeah.
Of just how do you get it to stop? How do you get it to be, to feel? How do you get it to feel different? And I feel like that's something that this topic of rewriting the conversations that are in your head, the stories that are in your head is going to allow that integration. And you start with the small things. Like
hmm
you start with the small things so then you're integrating the lessons so that that big gooey anxiety heavy thing that is just permeating your life taking over,
hmm
you're starting to break it apart little bit by little bit, so over time,
Right.
even if that's like 6 months a year.
Yeah. Took me like 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, like it releases itself over
hmm
time because of these little shifts that you're doing.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, 6 months, 2 years is not a long time period of your life.
Right. Right. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, now you've healed all these different little parts of you that were creating this massive like dark cloud. And so you've essentially healed them, you've moved through them, you've made the shift that you need to make. You're not likely to ever go back to that darkness in the you might go back to darkness, but just not in the same way. And that's
Yeah.
the key. Like the darkness is not gonna come from years and years and years of like all these bad habits that have and by bad I say in quotes. I'm not on camera, but nothing is good or bad. It just is. So you know,
Yeah.
once you've shifted out of those habits that weren't really serving you, um, now they no longer exist in you really because you've learned to like make them dormant in your life. So even if you do go back to a place where you're in this dark cloud era, it's gonna be a different type of dark cloud, and now you have the tools to dismantle it. Like I'm not afraid of future dark clouds anymore, the way that I am afraid to ever go back to where I was, because now I know that all I have to do is just piece by piece, like make these little shifts, and eventually that dark cloud will evaporate and give way to sunshine. And now I'm gonna stop with the corny cliches.
Look, it's so true. It is really the like as you were talking about that, what was coming up for me was the whole healing piece. And people talk about like healing we've talked about before of like you don't necessarily have to be fully healed, like it's this healing triggering, you end up keeping yourself in this stuck in this spot of like I have to heal, you have to go down all these rabbit holes. I think it's more just bringing stuff into your awareness because once you see, you can't unsee.
hmm
You won't be in that spot anymore because you now have this awareness of, oh, like what people are doing to me has nothing to do with my value.
Right.
It's actually them projecting stuff onto me. Or like you're picking things apart differently. You're
Right.
owning your own humanness and allowing others to have their humanness and realizing that it doesn't define who you are. And I think that really leads into back into where we were going to go with this episode of the stories that you're
Mhm.
rewriting.
Right.
And so many of those negative connotations, like we talked about in the last episode of being late. You know, being late is like a social construct because time is like it doesn't exist. It's just something we've created to
Hmm.
describe the changing of the sun and night and stars and seasons and all of that. We've just created something to it, but now it's become this our time is monitored down to the second. And to
But
have it,
because we have this time is money mindset, and so
yeah,
that's, yeah.
it's we're putting a different value on it versus enjoyment. It's like a rushed thing. You have to suck the life out of time when people just want presentness. But in terms of we give a negative connotation to it, and then we internalize that based on an external criteria. And
Right.
if that doesn't feel good to us. For some people, absolutely, like I want to be on time. This is my thing. I like that can be a positive thing for them, but we were talking about rewriting it. It's more
Hmm.
about soaking up whatever you're doing so then you can come into the next thing with your full focus, like your joy, your energy. And when
Hmm.
you rewrite that story, the need for external validation,
Hmm.
confirmation, approval disappears because
Right.
you've given yourself permission to no, I get to do what I get to do and I get to do it in the way I get to do it and this is what feels good to me, whereas that negative story about time and being late didn't feel good to me, so then I'm always bringing this anxiety, this rushedness, this oh crap, I can't enjoy my life. I'm mad about this meeting. I'm
Hmm.
not fully present here because what are people thinking about me because I was, 15 minutes late to this. It doesn't give off a good energy. And
Right. So I'm wondering if, like, if I were to rewrite the story, like really truly make that effort to rewrite the story, I would probably have an easier time being on time because I wouldn't have this like it would almost have I'd be going a roundabout way to get to the conclusion that I ultimately would love to get to, which is to be on time, by giving myself permission to not be on time. Um,
absolutely, you release the resistance.
yeah,
So it's easier to change.
yeah. So that's pretty wild. But as you're talking, I'm kind of wondering, is it possible that the reason that lateness is such a problem is because society has this story, like this, like we've all just kind of accepted that time equals money, time equals productivity, like time equals, I want to be getting all this stuff done. I want to jam pack my day with all these activities that are either productive or money making or what have you. Um, and that's why we all get so up in arms about other people not being on time because we feel like, oh, like, yes, we have this set lunchtime, but after this, I need to do this, and after that, I need to do that. And by you being late, you're throwing off my whole day. Or, um, I could be using this time to be making money for my business or doing something for work because time is money and now you're late. So I wonder if that's like we've just changed the value of time to be more than what it is, I guess.
Yeah. It's like that you're wasting my time.
Right. It
And
just
then it becomes
is.
a respect issue and all of that. Because yes, there's that society is built on we give our time away for money in order to be able to live. And so both of those concepts, time and money, have been created in I'm going to say a short time period. When you actually look at it, the way, because, I'm the homesteading woman, I'm the homesteading stuff. When you look at even 100 years ago, time wasn't as critical as it is now. Money wasn't as critical as it is now. We had the skills, we had the slowness where it was an exchange of commodities versus now it is a concept and a concept. Like time and money, we are in the digital world where money, most of our money is electronic. There's no physical backing to it. So it is literally someone can type into a computer and create $1 million. It doesn't fully exist. The same
Right.
that time, the way we know it down to the second, doesn't exist.
Right.
And so by attaching the two, you create such a tension that,
It's natural to a lot of us. It just
yes,
that's why I'm so resistant because it's not that I don't value money. Of course I value money. Like but I don't value money because I care about being rich. I value money because I want to live comfortably, I don't need to be a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever. I just don't want to worry. That's it.
yeah, it gets
Um,
you back into what actually matters. When
right.
you
And
remove the money and you remove the time, what would you actually be doing?
right.
What actually matters?
Right. And like the more money I have, I guess the more freedom I have to like just do my thing and like, la di da di da like through life. Like that's how I want to live. Um, but I think that maybe I'm resisting that construct of time because I guess I don't really value productivity or having a lot of money, so it's hard for me to understand that other people do.
Well, it's you value humanity more.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
value doing things that light you up. You value being present, like being with your family. You value spending time reading a book, expanding your knowledge. That is
Right.
more of a priority for you than going to a meeting.
Hmm.
And I think that's what most people sort of evaluate. But when you look at how is your body responding to it? Is it a negative response or is it a positive response? You can rewrite your brain
Hmm.
where if I'm dreading going to this meeting because I'm really absorbed in this book and I would love to be able to sit here and at least get to the end of the chapter before I move on to this meeting because I know I have to do the meeting. You can look at the meeting of like, okay, maybe this meeting is about a topic that I'm not super thrilled about, but I know that the next step in this project I'm so pumped about.
Hmm.
So in order to get to that next and I would give up reading the book to go and do that next step of the project.
Right.
So it's like finding the good part to be
Hmm.
able to rewrite the story of like, yeah, I'm super excited to see Jane and hear how her weekend went, or I'm so pumped to be able to get through this project part so that we can move on to the next part. So in order to do
Right.
that, I have to go to this meeting and like, yes, let's just make it bomb. Like let's just have fun and do something with it. Like when you rewrite that story,
Hmm.
the energy shifts
Right. Absolutely.
the
And I
body.
think I think what's really been helping me too is like actually participating in every meeting, even the ones that I don't really want to be part of. Or like I really have given myself permission to show up at every engagement, every party, every conversation, everything that I'm doing whether or not I want to, I'm just saying what's on my mind, like right now. I don't need to like save an idea or a comment or a thought for later because at the end of the day, it's all relevant. Like
Yeah.
it's all part of my interaction with this other person that I'm talking to. So why would I save it for later if it's a good idea or if it's like why not just say things in the moment when I think them? Like I think for the longest time I was having a hard time wanting to be on time because I put so much pressure on myself about how I had to act at each engagement, like what I was allowed to say, what I had to wait to say, what I couldn't say around this person, who I could be, who I couldn't be. And that's like a very, when you're somebody who is moving toward just living in a flow state, that is the opposite of a flow state. Like that is literally like I had so many rules and like ideas in my head about what I wasn't allowed to do and say. And so no wonder I was resisting showing up on time. I didn't want to freaking be there. I was
Yeah.
avoiding the whole situation altogether.
Yeah.
But now, like now, okay, I show up and the worst thing that happens is I make a comment and people are like, Steph, what the fuck are you talking about? Like what but it's not like I'm saying anything bad or like dumb. It's just like, wait, we're not there yet. Like give us a second and we'll get there. But like I don't care. Like, okay, like I understand that they're all on their own journey. They're not in my brain seeing how I'm connecting those dots. Um, and that's okay. I'm learning how to like get people to where I'm at. But it feels so much better doing it this way than it does when I constantly held back. And it's not like I'm like super confusing people or throwing people off. Um, I'm just, saying what's on my mind right now. And if we have to reverse engineer how the hell I got there, it's still a better conversation than sitting there silently, like angry that I have to be here, you know?
Yeah. And it fully comes back to being able to understand what your values and your beliefs and your opinions are and having those conversations while knowing that you can still be respectful. You can still come back and, change what your opinion is if you're having a conversation. You're able to show up and shift the like show up in a still respectful way,
Right.
even if you're late or even if you're like your brain is all over the place, you're still able to do it. And you mentioned something about like
Mm-hmm.
avoiding, and that I think a lot of people go through, where when you're in something and it feels negative, it can feel all encompassing,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't want to show up even though you need to show up, and it just creates even more and more tension. And so we avoid as much as
Right.
possible. And then it just the anxiety goes and the negativity goes and all of that. So if you can change that story, and it's like what we were talking at the beginning of this episode of just those little integrations. Um, so there's a situation that I've had in my life where, um, oh gosh, going even through this. Okay. So financial abuse, um, where I now have control of my finances again, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just me. So I am having to redo the stories that I was told about myself and my abilities. Whereas before, like I was awesome with finances, I was in there saving all the money, tracking all the things, doing all of that. And then I got into a situation where there was financial abuse and a lot of stories told to me about myself where I then started to believe them. So
Mm-hmm.
externally, I internalized, and it got to the point where then being on my own and having access, like it's just me having to deal with finances. it was scary and terrifying. And so
Right.
I avoided. I dipped, I only did the bare minimum that I had to do, and I was not involved. And it's taken time, but like just, it even be as like avoiding emails, avoiding responding to an email about something that had to do with finances. So even just like those little steps that you can take of like, okay, I'm going to respond to one email. Like you can rewrite the stories to
Right.
give you that little bit of a move forward that then you're taking control back. So you're entering that meeting with a different energy. You're entering that conversation with a different energy versus the lack of control, which created that negativity in your body where you felt, I'm not in control and I'm terrified and I want to avoid this situation because I don't know what to do and I don't know what's going to happen and the unknown is terrifying. When you rewrite that story into the positive, which can take some time, but even just like the little bits of you're in control. I'm going to go to this meeting and I'm going to just allow myself to have some conversations.
Hmm.
I'm going to allow myself to have an opinion. I'm going to allow myself to speak up even if it doesn't make sense. Like when you release the expectation that someone's going to judge you or that
Right.
you're yourself, you can show up more authentically you, and that tension, negativity in your body and your brain is going to dissipate. And it's little by little that bigger situation, poof, because you're more human in all of your, not flaws, but in all of your uniqueness, your personality, the way that you think, the opinions, the beliefs, the thoughts you have, the feelings. When you love, when you just admit, accept that
Hmm.
this is who you are,
Right.
it becomes easier to shift and flow and change because you're not tense about it. You're not constantly on edge about other judgments. If I change, I have to change. I put this like time limit on myself to make this amount of money or do this thing or whatever. It becomes easier when you release that.
Wow. I'm curious if you think that like most stories that we tell ourselves are connected in some way to time, money, energy. I mean, what else? Space, maybe?
Love.
Love. Okay. Well, love technically is an emotion, which is energy, right?
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting, and the reason I'm asking that is because if you take money has sort of moved itself up to the same level of importance as time and energy and space, which are, have been around since the beginning of time. Um, but 500 years ago, when as we talked about, maybe not even 500, a couple thousand years ago, whatever, when money wasn't really as prevalent or as important in our lives, I bet you the stories around money were pretty much non-existent or weren't as all-encompassing as they are now.
Mhm.
You people could really focus on unpacking the stories that they had around time and energy and space. Um, I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I just wanted to point that out.
I see where you're going with it.
It helps.
I think it's really a value because if you look at, people in impoverished nations, like
Hmm.
people in Africa that are living in refugee camps, they're super happy. Like, I mean,
I was thinking about that the other,
like
literally, you're taking the words out of my brain. I was thinking about that yesterday. I was thinking about how is India like one of the most happiest nations ever.
it is, I think it can come down to as well, you can integrate it into a social construct where
Mm-hmm.
you're grateful for what you have. Your The value of what you have becomes greater because you
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. So when you're being taught and told that money or time is the most valuable thing,
Mm-hmm.
then it can, well, I feel like money has a negative connotation overall in, the northern hemisphere or the
Mm-hmm.
western world, you could say, because it has been we have been told and taught and integrated since childbirth that money is the be all end all. You cannot live without money and you have to have a lot of it. And then you have to sacrifice your time in order to have it, in order to actually live a life.
And the goal is to have as much money as possible.
Yeah, because it all comes back to living a life and living a life of enjoyment. But when you actually unpack that, which I know full well, you don't actually need money to live. And your life is a lot happier
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have this massive stress about money. I think we've
Right.
created this social construct in order to sacrifice our time for money. And so we are this employee until we die kind of thing.
Right. Right. And if we're not an employee, we are, consumers. So they need us to be employees.
Yeah, they use money. They use money and time. Absolutely. But when you start to go, what is it I actually value? And being humans, you ask anybody, if you had time and financial freedom, what would you do? I would travel the world. I would spend more time with friends. I would have a bunch of dinner parties. I would, be present with my kids. Like you, you
They
would,
wouldn't work more.
right? Exactly. Like I'd be doing what I want to do. I'd be giving back to humanity. Like it would come down to the simplest of things
Yeah.
when you remove and shift what is actually valuable. The closer it comes, the closer that value comes to actually about what's being human
Hmm.
versus what society tells us is valuable. I
Right.
think that's where the happiness is.
Absolutely. And I for the longest time I was always told like, do this because you'll make the most money or save or don't do this because you'll save money. I was like I like no wonder I was so unhappy
Mhm.
because I was doing everything because somebody else told me that the key to my happiness was to have more money. And then all of a sudden I had more money and I was less happy and I just couldn't understand like what was going on. I was like, I thought this was the key. Once I got to this income bracket, like I was gonna be so happy. And then once like as a couple we got to this income bracket, I was gonna be even more happy. And honestly, I'm happy now, like where I'm at. Like if I never make more money, I mean, I would love to make more money, but is that me? Or is that
Yeah.
society telling me that? Like, why do I actually need to make more money? Um, because like, what would I buy with it? You know what I mean? Like, I, damn.
Well, and it's the stories on so there's two stories
Hmm.
where,
Whose story is this? Is this mine or is this
yeah.
society?
And is it something you want to change where it's like, you know what? I can make a shit ton of money and I can still be happy.
Right.
Like
Oh
you get,
yeah, exactly. Like just separate it from your happiness, I think is where
yeah,
I'm trying to get at.
exactly. When you switch the value to what is it that actually makes me happy? Can I find happiness in something that I previously felt negative about? You are going to literally change. This is where we get all woo woo. You are going to change the vibration of your energy. You are going to feel more positive. It's the whole like yellow car situation where you then start seeing, You get to choose whether that yellow car is a good thing or a yellow car is a bad thing. If you
Right.
choose that your life is all negative, you are going to see negativity everywhere. And that negativity, you're just going to see more and more of it. It's going to become more and more of your life.
Is that
Whereas,
why I couldn't attract money because I was so like it was never enough?
yeah,
Damn.
like
Wow.
obsessed with it, not meeting your needs.
Yeah. But it
And
was at the end of the day, it was more than enough. It's always been more than enough.
right. So you then, when you bring more of it into your awareness, which I've seen you doing it,
Mm-hmm.
where before that negative connotation of like, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. I'm always, in debt. I'm always, this person's always hurting me or like water issues all the time, like whatever. You're always seeing the negative. Whereas if
Right.
you turn it into the positive of, I always have more than enough, like my savings are continuously growing. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. People are so kind and generous with me. I'm able to fix every problem that comes my way. And there's always more than enough. You begin to see the positive. The yellow car becomes a good thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it shifts that energy within yourself. So you're then on the lookout for more good things. And you then feel more confident and of like, oh, I can handle this. Oh, it's not a big deal. You've now integrated at a higher level that being human is just a fun ass experience. And
Right.
all those negative things that you went through in the past where you felt like shit, now you're you're seeing so much better. Life is so much better because
Right.
you went through that goo and all the future goo. You know how to pick it apart little bit by little bit because your stories are shifting.
Absolutely. And like as you're talking, I have two thoughts that are coming up. So one is as you're talking about the yellow car, I'm picturing the negative yellow car for me is like a taxi cab in New York City.
I totally was thinking she's gonna bring up the
And
yellow taxi
then
cab in New York City.
and then the positive one is like a cute little yellow Volkswagen Beetle. Like it's like just popping along. Um so basically shift your taxi cabs into a Volkswagen Beetle and you'll be happy. Uh
Yeah.
and
It, it's
you'll see them all the time.
it's absolutely true. It can be there will be areas of your life, like permission that there are areas of your life where that just feels really sticky.
Mm-hmm.
It feels really sticky, all encompassing, like you're just gonna die, you want to die. Like there are parts of your life that you need to go through the depths, but it's figuring out where the stories need to be rewritten about yourself and where permission has to come back to who you truly are
Mm-hmm.
and no longer internalizing the external stories, the
Right.
social constructs of how things are supposed to be, of how this person screwed you over and they're living their best life and you're not, or like like whatever it ends
Right.
up. They got that job and you didn't. Like, that's when you stay in that negativity, like there you have to go through it to find the little pieces that you can then shift until you can shift the bigger story, because you can't shift the bigger story. When
Exactly.
it is like all encompassing, you cannot shift that bigger story with
The
like
bigger
one.
story ain't going nowhere until you
No,
fix the little one.
no, it is
Uh,
that like marble rock that you have to chip away at little by little before you get that amazing statue of a naked man.
right. Oh my God. And as you're talking, I'm kind of reminded of this idea that the cool thing is that once you get really good at this, as with anything, um, once you get practice with shifting the stories of your internal world, then the really fun part gets to be when you zoom out a little bit and you start to shift the stories you have about what's going on around you.
Mm,
That
yeah.
is, that's my favorite. So when your internal world is full of these like jam-packed with all these negative stories you have about money and time and energy and how you never do the right thing and how you suck at life and blah 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 blah. Which I've been there, trust me. And for a long time I was like everything sucks and I'm so bad at everything and like I can't I'm not gonna survive this. Once you're able to shift enough of those little stories and start to see your own life, um, through rose-colored glasses, or at least, glass half, what like a little bit more neutral or more positive, then you get to start to zoom out and see that like life maybe isn't out to get you, and the world isn't so full of evil, and like it's not all bad. Like actually, like once you start to see the yellow Volkswagen in your own life instead of the taxi cab, then you start to notice them outside of you and you're like in the world around you, in your community, in society, in the world as a whole. And that's where it gets to be really fun, where instead of seeing all the ways that society is keeping you down because you're XYZ, now you see all the ways that society is actually providing you with all these amazing opportunities because you are who you are. And I think that's fucking cool.
Yeah. You get to choose what you see.
Mm-hmm.
You get to choose the lens through which you see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it is big. And it really just takes, as you said, the world isn't happening to you. It's happening
Mm-hmm.
for you. All of
Right.
these experiences, because it pushes you back to what feels good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the negative story that you're believing versus how can I spin this where I can get excited about it,
Mm-hmm.
where I can look at the opportunities this is presenting me with, where I can instead of, okay, that person I applied, I worked really hard for that promotion and somebody else got it. You could sit there and you could mope about that and you could, and like full permission to absolutely take some time to do that if that's what you feel you need. And you could just like have that be, my life is over. Where am I going after this? Or you could flip it to, geez, that's awesome. That's awesome because that job is perfect for them. And clearly I'm destined for more. So what project can I tackle next? What
Mm-hmm.
opportunity is going to come next for me? Because that wasn't the right fit for me. And so you can like just kind of get excited, curious about what the options are.
Right.
Enjoy the unknown. Enjoy what's coming and knowing that because of the shit you've been through, you can look positively on it and you know that you'll be able to get through whatever goo.
Right.
It's the world is happening for you to return back to yourself where it's
Right.
not about this external ickiness. Because what does the external world tell us about, oh, you were passed over for a promotion? Well, you're not good enough, you don't work hard enough, you're um like you're not pretty enough, like whatever it is, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough experience, you need to go get a different certification. Like you can tell yourself all the stories based on external social constructs.
But once you shift that internal story, you stop seeing it that way and you start pushing back against those stories that society's feeding you because they're not true.
Yeah, you see your own value. You
Right. Like you
see your
see,
value.
I was passed that for that promotion, but you know what? I maybe I'm not really meant for it. Maybe I was meant for the next promotion, or maybe this is an opportunity to evaluate, hey, I have this job offer in my back pocket and I can't stop thinking about it. Maybe I should just go there. Or, I actually really like my schedule right now. I like how much work I have, and I don't really want to learn a whole new job. I don't really want to take on new responsibilities because I don't have the time and space. So, how can I use this as an opportunity to maximize the work that I'm already doing and really push my projects forward and stand out at work. Like, there's so many ways that you can look at that being passed up for a promotion and so many things that you can do with that to just be like, you know what? Okay, I wasn't the right fit, and that's all right.
Yeah, you're still a kick-ass human.
Right.
You're still absolutely a kick-ass human. And were you going after that promotion because that was the next rung on the ladder that you're supposed to be climbing because that's an external contract construct that you internalized?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you actually happier in your life? And if anything, you want more, you've been spending your extra time fighting to get more promotions or more experience in order to climb that ladder, but in reality, you don't actually want that. That's
Right.
creating so much tension in your life versus excitement. You actually want to spend more time with your family, or, maybe there's a passion project that you want to do. Like, really take the rejection, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing air quotes here, take the rejection as a redirection. That whole cliche of of really where's the opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
when you feel that shift in your body, and if you're not feeling that shift in energy, that's because sometimes you just have to feel it. Like sometimes you just have
Absolutely.
to feel that negativity and then eventually come back to, no, I'm still a kick-ass human. I'm still a badass kick-ass human. And other people not seeing my value in that promotion way or relationship or money or whatever friendship, like whatever it is, does not mean that my value is less. It just means that there's something better. There's somebody out there that is going to appreciate what I have to offer, and I wasn't going to actually be happy in this.
Mm-hmm.
The whole
Wow.
like nothing that's meant for you will ever miss you. I have so many examples of how that works.
Oh my goodness. Wow, we've unpacked a lot, and we cannot wait to hear the stories that you guys are rewriting after listening to this episode. And yeah, I mean, time just flew by. What is time? Um, like we've been at this. This is probably our longest episode, which I think we said last time.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good topic.
but
A good topic.
it was a big topic, and I really want to make sure that we really want to make sure that we covered both the individual and like zooming out.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that this topic will continue to be a part of our future conversations. But if you love this episode, if you love this podcast, be sure to give us a subscribe or follow on your favorite podcasting platform. Um, be sure to share it, like it, rate it, review it, all that fun stuff. And then, of course, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Threads at humanaf underscore podcast. And we'll see you next time.
And next time, be forewarned, that episode is going to show you how you can keep that shift because that is massive. So
Mhm.
stay tuned for next week.
This is Steph's. She's like so
I'm like
excited to have this
stomping.
conversation. She wanted to skip this one
Yeah.
and get right into that, but we'll get
It's
there.
it's very important and it is a huge lesson that changes your humanness
Oh my
100%.
God, I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to like hear what you have to say about this. Well, and I we've talked about it, but
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna end the
Next week,
episode. We
guys.
love you guys.